Hail and welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I'm going to be reviewing The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2, which is Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore. I'm Oni Senshi. Unfortunately, Necromancer is unavailable for this review. And, he already told me what he thought about the episode. So when we come to that point, I'll just fill you in on his thoughts. So we start off the episode with Mandalorian coming to a very familiar planet, back to Tatooine, and back to a familiar face, Peli Motto. Oh, what a great character. I think a lot of people are hot or cold on her. Not a lot of people just don't give her much thought. I think it's funny. And as Star Wars goes, having a bit of humor is definitely a welcome change from some of the sequel trilogy stuff that we got. So looking at this scene, it looks like Peli is grifting a bit on this, I would say, probably more affluent Rodian based on how he's dressed. So she stripped the parts on his land speeder, or she had her Jawa buddies do that, and then she's going to sell them back to him unbeknownst to him. A bit of fun there. And it's Boonta Eve, which is cool. So there's a bit of an Easter egg for you guys if you're a fan of the prequels. Basically what happened was we had Anakin Skywalker as a young boy having to win his freedom in the Boonta Eve pod race. So big festival, races going on, fireworks going on everywhere. I'm guessing feasting or as much as you can on a desert planet and all that fun stuff. So it is Boonta Eve, and Mando shows up. He comes in and he says, "Well, look, I'm looking for this part for IG-11, pardon me. That's the nurse droid, the part that he's missing." And he's, it seemed to me that he was set on getting that droid repaired. But Peli Motto says, "Well, we got this great R5-D4 unit." And so those of you who know R5-D4 will remember that he's been with us since A New Hope, or Star Wars, the original movie. And if he hadn't, blown his motivator, this droid's got a bad motivator, Uncle Owen. So that's why they picked R2 instead of R5-D4, because R5-D4 was the original droid that they were going to buy. And they ended up with R2 instead. So here we go, a little bit of an Easter egg. And she says, "No, we're going to give you R5-D4, and I'll alter your ship so he can fit in there again. And he's going to be fine for what you need." So in the end, Mando changes his mind and accepts it because, I guess it's what we need for the story. And, of course, they move on from Tatooine and they start heading towards Mandalore. So here we are, really nice aerial shot of Mandalore. It's covered in cloud. You can't really see the planet below. And when we come through the cloud cover, there's a bit of a scene that's reminiscent of The Empire Strikes Back, where Mandalorian descends through the clouds. But, of course, the clouds don't extend all the way to the ground like they did on Dagobah. The cloud cover breaks, and you see that the surface of Mandalore is covered in crystal shards. And I'm guessing that is, maybe it was a sand-like planet, or whatever the type of minerals were that created the crust for the planet were melted in the Great Purge by all the bombs. So there's basically a layer of crystal glass on top of the planet, acting as the crust of the planet at the moment. Mando lands. He sends R5-D4 to go take an atmospheric sample of the area that he has to go to. R5-D4 comes back and reports that the atmosphere is breathable. So the planet isn't poisoned the way everybody seemed to think it was. And this means that Mando can take Grogu and go explore. So he goes to the city. The mines of Mandalore are said to be below the Civic Center in the city. He sees underneath this layer of glass shards or crystal shards, we've got the city, which is destroyed, but the guts and the bones are still there. And he decides to descend down to see what's below the city, go exploring, see if he can find the mines. Grogu's with him in his pod. And unfortunately, before he's able to head down, he gets attacked by these creatures called Elamites. We didn't know they're called Elamites at the time. We find that out later from Bo-Katan. but these creatures called Elamites attack him, and immediately disarm him, and he's got to use the dark saber. And again, he makes even more of a show of struggling with the dark saber than he did back when the heavy gunner challenged him in the Book of Boba Fett. So he still hasn't learned how to use it properly, and he clearly hasn't been practicing, in my opinion, because it seems heavier than it appeared before, and he struggles fighting with it more so than he did when he was in the abattoir taking on all those bad guys in the Book of Boba Fett. So putting on a bit of a show, he's looking a little less capable than we know him to be. Mandalorian, he basically lives by the sword. He lives by his weapons. He is a proper Mandalorian, and they're making him appear a little too weak, in my opinion, in this one. So he dispatches the 3 Elamites, and it wasn't very swift. It was a close fight, but then he picks up his handgun, and he and Grogu head down into the bowels of the city. While he's searching the bowels of the city, he comes across several bits of, skeletons, bits of armor, that type of thing. And here you can see there's a Mandalorian helmet, and this was buried in the kind of detritus in the sand. And he picks it up. He's paused and he's picked it up. And while he's bending down to pick it up, a Mandalorian unfortunately gets trapped. He falls for the trap, and it's basically a big droid. Kind of cyborg, kind of like General Grievous was, where we can see that there's an organic being inside this thing, but the organic being must be incredibly small. So what it does is it traps Mando and it drugs him so that he can't fight back, and takes it back to, I guess, its lair, and then puts him into a cage. To do this, he gets the droid that trapped him, gets out of this huge droid, and then there's this smaller, humanoid-style droid. He does a few things and then heads off. He disarms Mandalorian. He gets rid of his blaster, and he gets rid of the darksaber, and he just throws him on the ground adjacent to him. So you can see the droid's feet here. Basically, this whole time, Grogu has been off to the side, hiding, being stealthy, and hasn't been noticed. So once the droid disappears, Grogu comes up and tries using the Force to free Mandalorian, and that doesn't work. So the Mandalorian tells him, "Go get Bo-Katan," in a very weak voice, because I guess he's all drugged and groggy. So because Mando has been talking to Grogu about navigation and how it's important not only for a Mandalorian to know how to fight and protect himself and to hunt, it's also important for a Mandalorian to know how to get around. And so he was kind of starting his training with navigation, and he told him about the different planets in the system of Mandalore. So Mandalore, and of course this other planet where Bo-Katan is, Grogu knows where it is. So Grogu goes back and uses the Force to fight off an Elamite, and make short work of it. So clearly he's becoming more comfortable and more powerful in using the Force. And he gets into the ship and tells R5-D4, he points at the planet and says, well, this is where we've got to go get Bo-Katan. And R5-D4 clues in. Great. We've got a good droid like R2 was. I guess he's more than just a little bit of an Easter egg. So R5-D4 pilots the ship to where Bo-Katan is. And again, can I just mention Katie Sackhoff? Wow. I tell you, this woman's got it all. Fantastic. Here she is as Bo-Katan talking to her aide, saying, "Download the droid. I want to find out what's happened, what's been going on." And so she finds out that he's been to Mandalore and goes to Mandalore with Grogu to go save Mando or help out Mando, find out what's going on. Bo-Katan enters the cave on Mandalore. You can see the surface is all slag and crystallized around her. And so she goes into the cave and, descends down to where Mandalorian was and fights off a few more Elamites very skillfully. And then she enters the area where Mandalorian is and has to fight the droid creature that was there. And in so doing, she picks up the darksaber and she fights this beastie. You can see her here, getting ready to slice him up, and makes really short work of him. He escapes in basically a head-sized droid, and basically crawls away. So I'm guessing he's just like an eyeball and a brain or something similar. Or maybe he's very tiny. He could be like the size of your thumb or something like that. And that his eye was just magnified because it was in front of a screen. So in any event, it'd be interesting to see what comes of that droid. But a very interesting droid and a very interesting battle sequence. Very happy to see that go on. And she saves Mandalorian and Din Djarin. She saves him and she brings him back up to a different part of I guess the cave system that they're in, and she makes Pog soup, which is a Mandalorian soup that all Mandalorians know about, but of course Din Djarin doesn't know about it because he never bloody had it before. And she says, "Oh, you've never had Pog soup? Blah blah blah. No, I've never had it." And he gets up and he's ready to continue searching for the living waters of Mandalore in the mines. And Bo-Katan decides she's going to go with him. So, with Bo-Katan's help, they find the mines and they find the living waters, and she starts reading off a plaque to him while he works his way into the water. But Mandalorian, being a little inept in this episode, falls into the water and sinks to the bottom. Hopefully his helmet is pressurized like we learned that he can do so that he doesn't drown. Bo-Katan dives in after him after she sees him disappear below the water, and she finds him down below by turning off her light to see a glow from his armor, and then she turns her light back on, picks him up, grabs him, and uses her jetpack to move through the water. Now, the big event that takes place in this episode is as she is ascending back to the surface, she sees a huge animal. And those of us who have been paying attention know this animal to be the mythosaur. The mythosaur. The mythosaur is a huge creature, could be the size of a building or a small town. And, legend has it that the Mandalorians drove the mythosaurs to extinction, and some of them actually learned to ride mythosaurs and ride them into battle. So the thinking was, at least the mythology is, that there are no more mythosaurs, that they are extinct. Well, Bo-Katan witnesses this mythosaur living in the water, in the living waters of Mandalore, as she is ascending. And afterwards, she pauses. Now, it's a pity. It would be really good if they would do something like they did in Iron Man, where you could get the expression on the face of the actor, right? Like they did with Robert Downey Jr., where you could get his face that was supposed to be inside the helmet. It would be excellent if they would use that type of effect here to really give us a feeling for what's going on based on an actor's facial expression. I'm going to say it's really challenging for actors to convey what they're feeling when they've got these helmets and these suits of armor on. Yeah, you can use body language a little, but then again, these are trained fighters, so they're going to give very little away with body language. Anybody who's done fighting for any number of years is familiar with not telegraphing your intentions. So you pretty much stay still until you're ready to act. So I think it's a bit of a challenge for these actors to convey what's going on. So, and having said that, kudos to Katie Sackhoff and kudos to Pedro Pascal, because they actually pull it off with little nuance very often throughout the series. And in this one, you can get the sense that Bo-Katan is shocked and amazed that, and probably is struggling to comprehend what she's just seen. She knows it's a mythosaur, and she thought they were extinct, and it's just a massive boon for her because she failed with the Darksaber, right? She didn't win the Darksaber in battle, and her rule failed, and that's why she needed to win it in battle, and that's why she wanted to face Moff Gideon. Now, unfortunately, the Mandalorian didn't realize the importance of her winning the Darksaber in battle, and he's the one who faced Moff Gideon and won the Darksaber in battle, which is, one way of leading Mandalore. Another way of leading Mandalore would be to tame a mythosaur or to kill a mythosaur, because, the Mandalorians and the mythosaurs go hand in hand. That's the skull that's on Boba Fett's armor. That's the skull that you see in the back of Paz Vizsla's armory. It has been with us as long as Boba Fett has from The Empire Strikes Back, which is the first time we see him. So, well, maybe not the first time. I think he appeared in the Christmas special, which is, laughable. But yeah, the first time we see it is, I think, on his armor in The Empire Strikes Back. So it's a huge deal for Mandalorians, the Mythosaur. And if there's any way that Bo-Katan is going to convince them that they should be following her, it is to tame a Mythosaur. So we're given another path for Bo-Katan to end up being the rightful ruler of Mandalore, other than blood alone. So we're going to see where they go with this. It was an interesting episode. Necromancer thought that, well, as much as we both love, and I love Katie Sackhoff, ever since the first time we saw her in anything. I mean, we saw her in Battlestar Galactica, the remake, when she did Starbuck. And I've seen her in many things since then. And yeah, she's been, kind of wasted in some of the CW shows. I think she was in Gotham and she played this grifter with a Cockney accent, which was fantastic. I thought it was very well acted, but I mean, unfortunately it was on the CW. And she's been in some Riddick, and she was in a Riddick movie, and I really liked her in that movie where she's a cop in Arizona. Not that movie, that TV show. I think it was on Netflix. I forget what it's called. So really good actress, and I love seeing her excel, and glad that she's still working and still relevant. But really, Mandalorian, in this case, she had to save him one too many times, I would say. You think back to the episode where they had to break into the jail, and Mandalorian was who the whole crew turned to when it was time to throw down. When it was action time, the Mandalorian was the guy. He was the warrior, the one that we looked to. Not inept, not incapable, not inefficient, not a bumbling fool. And they kind of turn him into that in this episode, just so that Bo-Katan can show us how good she is. It's the wrong character to do that to. The Mando should not seem inept. The Darksaber should not be so heavy that he struggles to hold it up for him, because it wasn't before. So why is it now? Right? Be consistent with how you do things. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Necromancer thought the same thing. He also thought that, it's women power. I think he said whammon power, where, the woman has to save the man. To me, a weapon is a great equalizer. So when it comes to battle and combat, if somebody is decked out in armor like this and she's using weapons, then yeah, they are on par. They are on par. But when it comes to physical strength, they're just not. Fortunately, she's using her knowledge of Mandalore, because she lived on Mandalore. She grew up on Mandalore. She was a Mandalorian princess, basically, which would make her a Disney princess, wouldn't it? Hey, Bo-Katan, Disney princess. So she grew up. She's using her knowledge to navigate these caverns and to save the Mandalorian, to save Din Djarin. But you know what? It's a few too many times. Save him the one time, and then he's on the ball. We're just using it as a plot device so that she can ascend through the water and see the Mythosaur. There are probably better ways to do it, where you don't make your main character look like a fool in his own show. So that's what I think about it. That's what Necro tends to think about it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please tell me what you think, and like, and share, and subscribe, please, if you enjoyed this review. If you didn't, that's okay too. Thank you for sticking with me this long. And if you have anything to add, please let me know in the comments. I'd really like to start engaging with some of you guys and gals, have a bit of a chat back and forth, and a lively discussion like we used to have, like when we'd walk out of a movie theater. Oh, what was your favorite part of the movie? Wow, what didn't you like about the movie? That type of discussion is what we're really hoping to start generating with these videos. So thanks again, and look forward to having another video soon. All the best. Cheers.